Hello and welcome back. Today we will be looking at part 4 of running the race. The race that the Apostle Paul writes about in 1 Corinthians 9. And we read here from verse 25. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. In the Isthmian Games, the crown was a laurel of green leaves or branches that were worn on the head of a winning athlete. And actually before the game, it was often set on a pillar that was in plain view of the athletes. And sometimes it was even at the end of the racetrack where they would run. And they would have the pillar at the end. And they would have the crown on top of that. So that they could have their eyes fixed on that particular crown. This winning thing that was waiting for them as a prize. So the athletes would keep the prize inside as they run. And of course, it wasn't really for the laurel or the green leaves that the runner ran. In one way, these were worthless. It was not worth anything. But they ran for the honor that it represented. The winner of the race could only enjoy that laurel for a short while before it began to wither and it would fall apart, you could say. Paul spoke of it as a crown that will not last. And indeed, it was very perishable. Even the honor that it represented would eventually fade away. Nevertheless, athletes would give everything they had to train for this race so that they would obtain that perishable crown and the honor that went along with it. They would go with strict training in all areas of life. They would practice self-control. They would abstain from anything that might slow them down in the race. They would go into it for months or even years of strict discipline training. They would carefully control themselves in terms of what they would eat. They would deny themselves of pleasures and comforts that other people freely enjoy to get this perishable crown. I was thinking about that because if you think of athletes today, they peak often between the ages of 20 and 31, and in some areas and in some kind of competitions they last longer. Marathon runners are often a little bit later in age, they're a little bit older and they can still win, and there's some more sports like that. And many could say, maybe if you think of it, I was the world champion, or I was the national champion, or the European champion, or I was at the age of. But what were they at the age of 40 or 50 or 60? These great athletes, they went through all this effort and all this suffering, all this training and all this sacrifice, all in order to obtain a perishable crown. Paul spoke of another crown. He spoke of the crown we will receive from Christ that is imperishable, one that will last forever. Unlike even the greatest crown given at those games in Corinth, this one actually will be eternal. Paul wanted to please his master and hear him say, "Well done." But do you know what else motivated and excited the Apostle Paul? It was the idea, the thought, that the people that he loved and the people that he could influence for Christ, that they themselves one day would stand before Christ and hear him say, "Well done. Well done." That was the crown that most excited him, I think. And that's what drove him to run the race in the manner that he did. That perspective was motivating him to be in strict training and to be willing to set aside his so-called freedom and rights if it would advance the cause of Christ in the lives of others. And that's an important thought too. I think that's what motivated him most, more than himself, is have others hear these same words. Well done. Well, what do we do with this today? Paul clearly states that he is only interested in the applause of one in his life. How much does the applause of people matter to you in your decisions that you make on a daily basis? How important is the pleasing of many versus the applause of one? Take a moment to think of that and pray.
Thank you for watching this video. Do you want John as a keynote speaker or to facilitate coaching, workshops or seminars for leadership or staff? Connect through our homepage.